And we are exciting to thrilled to announce our special guest who's talking about the cloud security hosting. Over to you, Zakir.
Thanks, Jyoti, for introducing. So, hi everyone. My name is Zahir, and just a brief introduction about myself. I'm in this industry of cybersecurity for the last 25 years. Rather, I would say since 1997, and work in this space. I specialize in the space of risk, compliance, and governance, and risk management, project management, and since 1997, I've worked in multiple industries from education to Big Four like EY, KPMG, Deloitte, and different telco industry. Currently, I'm based in Melbourne, Australia, and I'm working for one of the uh, IT infrastructure company over here. And in parallel, I'm also working as a senior cybersecurity advisor with TechLight, where we work on different clients related to e-commerce, and we help them and guide them to make sure that their websites and the cloud secure and the cloud solutions are actually in compliance with the best practices, and their data and their key assets is secured as much as possible. So that's my high level introduction. Thanks, Jyoti.
Thank you, Zahir. This is quite understanding, and this is quite exciting to have you on board. And we have the exciting topic around cloud hosting security. I hopefully the you will guys enjoy over it. And let me just starting with the first question around the audience that I want to ask. We have the first question is what's cloud hosting and why security is important in the context of the cloud
Yeah.
security. Or
Right.
hopefully you can
Great.
explain.
All right. So clouds, what is cloud hosting? So first of all, let's get to the basic of concept of what is cloud hosting. So cloud hosting is like you have outsourced your storage to some third party, right? So what happens is that in the olden days we used to have the hard drives and machines in your own premise, and we used to store everything in a physical location. But now the world has changed and the world has moved, and we want to move everything in a virtual environment or a cloud environment where we can share data, we can store data, we can receive data from anywhere, any part of the world, right? But having said so, where these things have become easy because whenever you travel, you can just click. For example, Google Cloud is a very simple example, right? So everybody has Google Drive nowadays, or Microsoft OneDrive, or whatever services you're using, or maybe Microsoft Azure you're using. There are so many different services now available in the market, which either as an individual or as a business you might be using to host your environment, to host your websites, to host your business, to store your data. But what is more important for us? Why? Because you are protecting your information asset, right? I'll give you a simple example. See, right now, all of you have a bank account, right? And right now, how do you track your bank balances? Definitely, you have an app in your cell phone. So whenever you open your app in your cell phone, you can check your last balance, right? Now imagine one fine day you wake up or you just check your cell phone and realize that your bank balance has changed. The numbers are not there. Something has gone wrong, right? So you will be in a state of a panic. That means that something is not right. Something has gone wrong somewhere, and your data has been either modified or deleted or removed, right? So that's why the security is very important nowadays, because ultimately what we want to achieve in the end is to make sure that your or ours information remains secure, right? And before we go to the next point, just want to define security in another aspect. So what does actually security means to us? So if you go into the world of our information security or cyber security, you will see that there are three key words, and I will be repeating those three words throughout my session just to give you that context of understanding. And those three words are like C, I, and A. One is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And it's very simple to understand. See, confidentiality means nobody can access my data, nobody can read my data without my permission, right? So if I have stored something, definitely I would not like anybody to go and open my file or access my data unless or until I allow them to do so. So that is confidentiality. Plus, in addition, if my data is being traveling from one location to another location, it needs to be encrypted. right? So that nobody can read it, right? Secondly, integrity, that nobody can modify or change my data without my permission. For example, my address, my phone number, my personal details, right? If, for example, if I change my home, my address will change, right? But it has to come through me. Somebody has to come to me, or I have to go to the that institute or financial institute or bank, and with my permission they will change the data. So that's integrity. So I don't want my data to be changed without my permission, right? And last but not the least is the availability. So what does availability actually do? uh, that it makes sure that your data is available all the time, right? So so just imagine, like, if you're using an ATM machine, and ATM machine should be available 24 by 7, right? So even if I go in the night time, I can use my card to withdraw the cash, right? So that's availability. So I want availability. That's what, and same thing with cloud hosting, right? So you remember, ATM and all financial banks data is based on cloud. So if cloud hosting is not working and they don't have a availability option properly set up, then it will not work for you. So that is what is cloud hosting is all about, right? All right, let's move. Thanks.
All right, thank you for your brief introduction around cloud hosting. So, before moving forward to the next question, let me just ask you some another type of a question that's bit related to your own life, like something your own experiences.
Hmm.
So, how do you define security in your own terms?
Security in my own terms. It's as
Yeah,
this is what I just said, that in my own terms, like, it's all about protecting your information. See, remember, normally, let me clarify another definition, which I encounter every day in my life. Like, when we say the word asset, I'm not talking about the physical asset. See, laptop is an asset, your cell phone is an asset, but these are physical assets, right? But what is more important, the data inside it, right? Right? So your
yeah,
laptop is of more of a value if it has a data. Otherwise, your laptop may be maybe $1,000, for example, and even if it breaks, it's fine, it's a loss. But if your data, if but your data is stored in your laptop, and if you have not taken a backup of it, and if you lose your data, that is more valuable to you, because you lose your years of your data, years of work in it, right? Or maybe you're working on anything very important. So for me, protecting that information asset, that information which is we classify as asset, is the most important thing. And I'm again going to connect this point with my first point, that whenever we talk about the protection or the security, whatever word you want to use, right, we always connect security with CIA. So remember, always think on those basic things, that how will I keep my data secured? How will I make sure that nobody changes my data or modify my data? And how do I make sure that data is available 24 by 7? And in case my primary system breaks or crashes, do I have a backup? So for example, right now we are using a laptop. I lose a laptop. But to be honest, if you ask me that am I worried about my laptop, I am not, because all my data is on the cloud right now. So I use normally Google Drive, for example, and all my data is on a Google Drive. So even if my physical machine gets damaged or break, I can always switch to another machine, access my account, and get my stuff back, because everything is on the cloud. So that's what important. But yeah, but the story doesn't stop here, and this is where this podcast will continue. That now, after that, my next concern would be that the cloud which I'm using to store my data, how secure is that also is important. Because if you're going to pick a third party or a cloud which doesn't have a good history, or you don't know what they're doing with your data, then it's a big question mark. So that's also, we need to understand that how is your data being kept by someone. It is just like, when you I'm sure many of you have a locker in the bank, right? And in the locker you keep your important stuff, like your gold especially, or some cash. So I also need to understand how secure is the locker in the bank. It's the same way you have to start thinking about the cloud, right? So that's
yeah,
how
that's
we have to.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's funnier to ask. But I just wanted to ask you. That's you said that everything should be on cloud. But
Yeah.
what if your whole life get threatened? That your whole life get hacked? Your social media, your everything's got hacked. But what's the key consideration to take them?
So the key consideration is goes back to the basic, and I can even show you on my desk. I still keep my offline data with me. So always have this hard drive with me, that no matter how
Yeah.
much you have a cloud. See, cloud is ease of use, but
Hmm.
cloud, I completely, I will give you one point. So cloud is a good backup, but it's because of ease of use. Because especially when you're traveling, cloud becomes easy accessible. But that doesn't mean that you should not have an offline backup. I'm still an advocate in this modern times that in the end you should always have one offline backup for yourself. Worst case scenario, at least you have your data. See, there are a lot of consequences if your cloud data is breached, and that's a separate topic of discussion which we cannot cover today, but that's a separate topic of
Exactly.
discussion. But again, remember, you should have an offline backup. Then at least, even if that your data is breached or goes to public, but at least you have saved something on your drive. That's important, right? So you have to go back then to the basic, right. So that's what it is.
Right.
But again, I believe in one thing, that that's a worst case scenario, right? But the best case scenario would be that whenever you select your cloud host, right, you have to make sure that you pick the right company or the organization. So I've already taken names of some famous ones, but there are, but for a business there are hundreds of choices available. And because in US market there will be different cloud vendors, for Australia market is a different vendor, for Pakistan there are different vendors. So there are a lot of things to consider before you select your cloud host, right? So that we will discuss as we go along, right?
Right. So let's get jump into the next question.
Yeah.
So, what are the key considerations for cloud hosting security?
All right. So let me take you to a slide where I can actually talk about this thing. So this is a something which I picked from the internet, and this is a very if you even search by the global cloud security market, and there's a website by the name of market.us, right, or market.us, right, which gives you all the statistics about the recent things, and these are like based on, I don't know, X number of companies based in US and the European market, right? So first, let me give you a snapshot of it, based on your question. That so overall, first you can see the story of cloud is quite old now. Like it's at least 10 to 15 years old now. It's not something very new. But initially, the trend was very low. Like people used to still, we used to still believe that I don't want to outsource and go to the cloud. I want to keep my data with me. But you see, when you're maintaining the stuff yourself, it's very expensive. And that is the reason, one of the reasons that companies are now outsourcing everything. It is something like that, that if you're managing yourself, first you need to understand that what is the difference, right? So let me give you a very brief explanation. If you're managing something yourself, you need to buy the hardware, need to buy the infrastructure, you need to hire 3 people or 4 people to maintain it, manage it. Whereas when you outsource it, you're not going to do any of this. You'll just pay per month some fees, or per year some fees, and they will manage everything on your behalf, from the infrastructure to the hardware to the entire environment. So that is the reason you can see. So that's one thing. But now as we grow and the more we outsource, there are issues. It's not that issues are not happening, and every day in the news you will see there's a ransomware attack, some data has breached, some issues has happened. So now the cloud companies itself, because they need to make sure they don't lose the customer, right? Because they have data of so many companies with them, right? It is just like the bank, right? Having hundreds of customers with them. So they need to make sure that the bank is secured physically as well as the system wise. So they're investing a lot of money on it. And you can see over the trend that, so overall you can see the four key areas where the investment is happening, right? That is identity and access management, data loss prevention, security, information and event management, and business continuity and disaster recovery, which I'll explain you these things in a while. But these are the four key areas of security considerations, I would say, where cloud companies are investing. So now let's break each of them at a very high level. So what is identity and access management? It is access to the data, like who will access, and why you would access. Who are you? If I say I'm Zahir, then how do I prove myself I'm a Zahir? Right? Once I have proven myself, then what do I access? Can I access everything? I can only access something where I'm required to access or what I'm supposed to access, right? So that is what access management do. It keeps track of the user, who has access, what he has access, from where he is accessing or she is accessing it, what data was accessed, why it was accessed, with whose permission it was accessed, and so on, right? And I can go on like that. So that is identity and access management. Data loss prevention is something that you see in your system. You have a lot of confidential data. I don't know how many of you ever tried, but I can actually, if I go to my work machine right now, and if I use Gmail or Yahoo account and attach up my work file and send it across, it will block it, because that system is intelligent enough to see that why Zahir is attaching a confidential data in his external mailbox and sending it to someone else. So that is data loss prevention. So that's there are tools right now available which automatically detects your sensitive information or data, and blocks that data to be transferred outside the network of your environment, right? Security information and event management is an interesting thing. It is all about the trends, the logs. Like for example, I'm sitting in a network. Say right now we are doing a session, right? And on face of it everything looks fine, but at any point of time there is a possibility that someone from the outside world is trying to attack and come into the network. I don't know exactly what's happening around it, right? So it is just like when you I need some kind of a monitoring system. So this is just like a monitoring system which will identify things and tell me that what is happening in my network. Is the traffic which is flowing is all good, or there's some kind of issues going on in my system, somebody's trying to break in, some kind of abnormal activity is happening, or somebody in the middle of the night is downloading some stuff or capturing something. So these there are systems available who actually monitor your traffic on a live basis, on a real time basis, and they actually identify if there is something which is abnormally happening in your environment. So that is security and event management. This actually helps people like technology people to identify issues in the real time basis, and we can stop something from happening. For example, right now, see, right now we are on internet, and if you go back to your technology team and ask them that, so they might see that your internet graph should be normal, like traffic is either coming and going, but suddenly if there's a big spike, right, it is, so what has happened, why so much of data has left my environment. So you can check with few people who is online that did you delete something, did you upload something. They said, no, we haven't deleted anything significant, or we haven't uploaded anything. So this is an alarm for you. This you need to worry about it. That maybe something is not right, something has happened, and then you have to immediately stop your network and start to investigate what actually went wrong. Right. So these are the tools which actually help you to understand these things. And then worst case scenario, if actually something has gone wrong, then if your primary systems are not available for some reasons. So I'll give you a simple example. When a ransomware happens, which is a very common word, what is ransomware? Like they can come and hijack your data. Some unknown person will come and hijack your data. That means your primary system is not available. So you will negotiate with with that person or company. That's a separate story. But in parallel, you have to still run your business. So what are your alternate measures? It is something like that. If you don't have an email, then what you would do? You can use WhatsApp. That's alternate measure. Even if you don't have a WhatsApp, then what you will do? You will use a paper and a pencil to write, or any other thing, right? So that's your business continuity. So you have to think of some alternate process. Or worst case scenario, if even nothing is there, so maybe you have another location, maybe another city where you have set up the similar services, and you can for some days you can move to another area, because this particular your office is not uh, like it's not that none of the systems are working. So maybe you can move to another area, and you call that a disaster. Disaster is worst case scenario when none of your systems are working, and then you will go back to your backup, restore the backup, and start working on it. So these are the common concerns or security considerations which we have to take, and these are methods which we use to actually improve our cloud, and this should be a part and parcel of every cloud hosting. So normally, if somebody asks me that, "Zair, is this company good?" So I'll share some details with you later, but there's a checklist available on internet which actually you can use, and what some of the best practices are available which you can use to make sure that These are the 5 to 10 things which your cloud security company should be having. Your cloud company should be having, not security, but rather your cloud company should be having with them, which will ensure that your data remains secure. And again, remember, you're linking with C, I, and A. So your C and I is right now covered with identity and access management. That's your C and I both. Data loss prevention is again C and I both, right? Security, information, and event management is helping you to identify the issues in your system, which will help you to prevent C and I, right? And A, availability is linked with your business continuity and disaster recovery. So this is how they all connect the dots, right? All right, let's move on.
Thank you for your answer. I hope the all questions will be clear around this. So
Yeah.
before moving to the next question, I would just ask a bit of question around you. You said that that everything should be on a cloud, and you must have some backup around it to
Hmm.
secure your data. But
Hmm.
what if your cloud itself is not secure? It is just the worst case
Agreed.
scenario.
So,
What if your cloud is
so,
disaster
so that is,
accounted?
so
How
that
would
is
you
the reason.
overcome this storm?
So that is what we are discussing right now. You see the so if you bring that slide back, which I was just showing, so these are the
Sure.
4 things, 4 areas which your company should be having in place. So let's say you go to some XYZ company, right? Any company. Let's not take about some famous names like Google or OneDrive, but let's take any company, right? Maybe I set up my own cloud, like Zahir Cloud, right? If somebody comes to me and
Right.
says that Zahir, will you host my data? I said, okay, yes, I have the best services. But then in the return, they can ask me questions that, okay, how do you make sure that your cloud is secure, right? That's the question, right? So I will, in my response, I have to prove and showcase my abilities that I have these solutions deployed in my environment. I've talked about identity and access management. I've thought about data loss prevention. I've talked about the security information. And these are just the top 4. There are other features which I'll show you later as we move on. But there are so many other things. And I have actually have to prove it. And this is where I can link maybe with some other topic which we'll discuss later, that where do you get this checklist from? So there is a checklist available. There are best practices available in the industry which helps a layman like me or anyone to understand that what I should be looking in a good cloud service provider, right? So if I know that these are the minimum 5 to 10 things I should be looking in a cloud service provider, and if that cloud service provider can prove that they have these things established, and how will they prove? Again, that comes with the frameworks. Like for example, if cloud companies tell me that we are ISO 27001 certified, very simple answer. Okay, then the next question I'll ask him, do you have the certificate? Yes, we have the certificate. I'll see the certificate. If the certificate says that this company like Zahir Cloud is certified by ISO 27001, so it means that we can trust ISO 27000. Means that means they have already cross-checked that this company has all the bare minimum requirements, which makes them secure enough to host the data. So that's very important. So from a layman, you may not be able to check everything technical, but then these kind of certifications will help you to validate and build up your confidence, right?
All right. Let's jump into the next question.
Yeah,
You have already cleared about some security considerations in the cloud hosting
correct.
companies itself, what we need to check, right? So
Mhm.
let's come up with a question that's what's the recent issues in the cyber data breaches can come?
Yeah. So I'll give you a snapshot of it. So in terms of issues, there are many issues, right? So if I start to talk about issues, then we need a complete day for that, right? But I'll give you a very high level thing, right? And these are
Right.
very, I would say, the top 5 issues. I would say, I will not say these are the only 5 issues. I would say the top 5 issues which results in most of the problems happening in the cloud industry, right? So the if you're looking at the screen right now, you can see the five are data breaches, misconfigured settings, insufficient access control, DDoS attacks, and insider. Let me explain you one thing at a time. So data breaches is actually somebody from the outside world attacks you, right? So we can call it ransomware. But remember, when someone from the outside world enters your internal environment, they it is not like they won't just walk in, right? There are some weaknesses. For example, if my house is I'm living in a home right now, and if somebody from the outside can walk into my home, right, there has to be something like maybe my door was unlocked. Let's take a simple example, right? Or maybe he knew the password or the code to enter my door, or maybe he broke my door because my door was not very strong, right? He had good tools, and he somehow used that tools, and he was successful enough to break my door, right? So that is how the data breaches happen, that your environment is not strong enough to prevent that thing from happening. And why it is not strong enough, there are three reasons for that, which is on this slide. The first reason is access control. Let's put it this way. So that's why, if you remember this slide where I was showing you about this identity and access management, that if your access controls are not properly defined, and especially, I don't know how many of you heard this word, it's a role-based access control, which I'm highlighting. When I say role-based access control, it means that, for example, if I have three people, I need to understand. So, for example, if somebody is from the finance team, can only access the finance data, he or she should not be allowed to access the HR data. Why? Right? And vice versa. So role-based access control goes to that detail, to that level, that first of all, who can access what systems, and plus how much you can access. Can you access all the files or some of the files? That's also very important. Normally, what happens is the most common issue in the industry, that we don't care about access control. Normally, what happens when someone joins the company, we provide them access to everything without even thinking that does this person need this access. And secondly, when that person leaves the organization or maybe changes the department, maybe he goes to another function or another role, right? We don't even check the previous access, right? And that's the problem. Or maybe someone goes for a long leave, maybe for 3 months vacation or 6 weeks vacations, or someone goes for a parental leave, right? And I because in Australia we have a rule that the females can go for 9 months or 1 year leave when they're expecting a child, right? So we have to make sure that all the access controls needs to be blocked immediately. When they will come back, they can get the access again. So that is one reason. The other reason is misconfigured settings. And this is again a very simple answer to it. For example, let's take a simple example. You have antivirus in your system. Do you make sure that your antivirus is updated on a regular basis? Your Windows, you have Windows
Yes.
or Linux, right? Do you make sure that these updates are regularly updated? Or have you ever gone to your settings and control panel and checked what settings you have? Okay, even a simple question. I don't know which browser you're using right now. For example, you're using Chrome, right? Or Microsoft Explorer, right? Or maybe Firefox. How many of you ever thought about going to the advanced settings and checking that what are your settings enabled and disabled from the backend, right? So these are configurations. So these things also need to be done, because if your configurations are not properly enabled and disabled, you will not know. For example, password control. Let's take a simple example. Like if you go to the good, if I pick up the best practice, they say that password should be minimum eight. Nowadays we say minimum 12 characters or 16 characters. It should have an uppercase and lowercase and complexity and so on. Let's say. So these are configurations issues, right? So that is another weak area, because I've seen in the industry that systems are not properly configured. This the settings which should be there at the minimum, nobody no normally what happens, I'll give you another example. You have a Wi-Fi at your home, right? The Wi-Fi router. How many times, Jyoti, you have gone and checked in your Wi-Fi router that what other settings, like normally what happens, you buy it from the market, connect it to your home and connect the device, and that's it. Right? We don't even change the
Right.
default password of it, right? So these are the issues, right? The third one is the insider threats. The people in your own company are dangerous. It's not that the people are dangerous, the habits are dangerous, like sharing passwords. It's so common nowadays. We talk so loud, others can also hear what are we talking about, right? So these are the another issues we have to take care of it. So these are threats, right? Now what happens because of these issues, anybody from the outside or from the inside can take benefit of it, and they can, if they're not happy, let's say outsiders will have different intentions. They want to create and destroy the environment from the, but the insiders will, maybe they are upset, they are not happy. Normally you will say, I did not raise, my salary has not increased for the last 6 months, I will do something bad. And there you go, right? So this is how it happens, right? So these are the security issues. So these are like top five which I picked up from the industry, and these are common stuff where it happens. And the DDoS one, the last one, is normally done by again the external party. It is like what happens, like for example, I'll give you a very simple example of a DDoS attack. Let's say you're having a big musical concert, like big, like in your country you have a famous singer, and is having a concert, right? Now you ask the people to be in a queue, and you check the tickets and let them go in. Now suddenly what happens, thousands of people come on the gate and then try to break in. You can't stop them. So ultimately they will push, and ultimately they will get inside it. So that is DDoS attack. So what happens when when lots of people try to attack your environment, your ultimately your system will you fail, your service will fail, and ultimately you have, it will be unavailable, because your system will confuse that he doesn't know who to answer. It is just like this one teacher, and there are 1,000 people sitting around it, and everybody's asking question at the same time. I don't know who to answer. That's a DDoS attack, like that, right? So that's how it all works over here. So these are the common security issues, but as we go along, there are other issues, but these are the top most five. And you can also see, I put in down the solutions also. These are very high level definitions, but if time allows and if we go for further sessions, then we can further talk technical things around it. But there are solutions available in the market. It's like right now knowing what are the key things and what to pick up. All right.
Thank you, sir, for a detailed answer. I hope so everyone can relate to it and avoid these
Hmm.
common issues around it. So let's get jump to the next question. And see, how does the cloud hosting security can impact the insurance policies and premiums?
Correct. All right. So let's talk about that. So coming to that one, I'm just going to my particular topic. So this is the question you're talking about. So first of all, let's define what is cyber insurance. Jyoti, can you go on mute if that's okay? Because I think there's some background noise. Okay. Now, yeah. So I'll tell you what. So first, let's define what is insurance all about. So when you say policies and premiums, it's everything to do with insurance. So insurance is a concept which has recently, not very recently, but has come up in the market, because normally what happens, the purpose of the insurance, that if your asset is damaged, then insurance will pay you back, right? Same thing with your data. Like for example, if your data is somehow hacked or it's stolen, right? Then insurance company will come and assess the loss, right? And they will try to give you something in the dollar number. Although the data has gone, but at least they will try to compensate in terms of financial numbers. But the interesting part is, like, I don't know how many of you have ever got the health insurance for yourself or any kind of insurance, and you will be knowing that in order to get the insurance, you need to be very healthy, right? So no, that's a funny part of the story, but that's the harsh reality. The more healthy you are, the better insurance policy you get. Although it should be vice versa in my concept, but it doesn't work that way. That you need to be more healthy. So they will ask you few things, right? Right. So what happens, in simple word, if you want to have a good insurance policy, let's say you say that if something goes wrong, I need to have like $1 million or $2 million policy or $3 million policy or $4 million policy. But they will only give so much amount of policy premium if your company is well secured and you have good controls in place. Otherwise it will never go for that thing, right? So that is why having a good security control deployed will give you better policy. Now, if I go through this checklist quickly, it's a lengthy list, so I can't go it right now, but these are like few things I made for this one. So I'll give you a quick one that initially there are a lot of companies who are managing your insurance. They can offer you this policy, but at a high level, what I'll give you that when you go for this thing, you have to make sure that you are uh, not this one. Let's stick with the first slide because I don't want to read the whole thing, but I'll give you a snapshot of it. The best part is that if you want to get a good insurance policy from a good company at a good premium, right? You need to make sure that all the key areas of your security. Now, next question you can ask me linked with this one that how do I know that my environment is well secured? Simple as that, right? So, if I'm running a company, how would I know that uh, I'm good enough? I don't if my security is good enough. I can come and tell you, okay, I've done these 10 things, I've done this, I've this 10, but still, am I good enough? Right? So answer is very simple. So th- in this topic, I'm just probably bringing this topic earlier before I could discuss, but I need to connect with this question that there are some frameworks available. So I'll give you one simple example. If nobody has heard about it, they can actually check on the internet also. If you go and check NIST cybersecurity framework, it's NIST NIST and cybersecurity framework. That framework is used for maturity assessment. When I say maturity stage assessment, is it from the scale from 1 to 0 to 100. It is just like getting marks out of 100, right? The higher the better. So for example, if some company says that we have scored 50 out of 100, that means your maturity is not very good. That means you need to further improve your areas to come to the good level. But if one company says that I've scored 80 out of 100, which is good, like anything more than 70, 75 is pretty decent. So in simple words, the higher you go with in your marks or in your score, the better policy you will get. So that is why your cloud security is directly proportional to it. So the better your security controls are. So normally what happens in especially in the US market, I know that when you go for the cyber insurance with the insurance companies, so they will check on one thing which I mentioned. I can show you one thing which is very common over here. I think I mentioned it. There is one framework by the name of known as PCI DSS, right? It's mentioned, I think, in one of these earlier slides. Here it is. Payment card industry data security standards. This is a PCI DSS framework, and this is specially designed for e-commerce or financial companies who normally deal with electronic transactions or electronic payments, right? So when you go to this payment card industry data standard, they have a checklist of I don't know X number of questions, and you have to answer those questions and then also provide evidence that you have those things in place. Like again, common areas like identity, access management, security management, business continuity, disaster recovery, encryption, and all these things will come in, right? Like common stuff. So once you have these things in place, then they will come to you. They will physically visit you. They will check all the things in place, and once they're happy, then they will issue a certificate that this X company is in compliance with the PCI DSS standard. If you are in compliance with this PCI DSS standard, then when you will take it to the insurance company, you will definitely end up getting a good insurance for yourself. But if you go without it, these companies they will not even listen to you. It's as simple as that, right? So you need to be you need to prove yourself that you're taking good care of your health, right? And then only you will end up getting a good insurance for yourself, right? That so these are like just I would say the top of the iceberg which I'm sharing with you. But if I at that time if I start going to the specific requirement of PCI DSS, so probably we need another session for that. But that's something for companies to consider that for if you're especially in the e-commerce and the financial market, then PCI DSS is the best standard against which your compliance. And if you want to just assess your maturity, that as a overall from the cybersecurity, what is the maturity of your organization? So NIST cybersecurity framework, NIST CSF is one of the best frameworks we can use to actually assess your maturity, right? All right.
All right. I guess this would be a beneficial for all of
Mm,
others to get understand around it. Okay, because of short of the time, we have a lot of questions to ask, but
yeah.
I hope so that you have some other tasks to do also. So
Yeah.
let's,
Correct.
yeah,
Let's
so
take
let's
let's
get
take a last question, and then we can. Yeah. If you have any other last question, let's take a last question, and then maybe we can. So I think if you don't have a question, then I just want to add one more thing, just for the
sure,
audience
sure,
perspective, and then we can
yeah,
call it a. So I'll just share my screen, right? And I'll just want to
yeah,
put one thing, which will be very important in general for all e-commerce companies or anything. So this is a slide. Like I just need to zoom it up a little bit. So this is specially designed for third-party one. So because remember, if anyone who's listening to me right now, they if they want to go and they're looking for a cloud service provider, right? So they need to understand that what they need to check. So this is a high level summary, and maybe the video will capture it also, which you can later read also. So these are like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Very high level, very high level. 10 things to consider when you decide whether you should go for company X or company Y or company Z, right? Something like that. So this gives you some considerations, like first of all, what type of third party you're going on, and I've given you the explanation and importance also. Then the data sharing, compliance requirement, contractual obligations, incident response plan, and this is more important. Remember why? So I'll just pause for here for 30 seconds or 1 minute. Why this is important? See, if you remember, Jyoti, your initial question, that what happened if your cloud security is breached, and which is very
yeah,
likely, like, right? So does that company also have a backup plan? What they have thought about it? I need to know, because if they if, because nobody is like safe, right? Problems could happen in the environment also. So what is my third party doing about it? So if their environment is under ransomware attack, right? What they would do? What are the plans? How will how do I how do I make sure that my data is still safe, right? And even if it is not, and for some reason if it is not safe and something goes wrong, then how will they compensate me? What will happen to me? Because because if I'm 100% dependent on them, and if they lose my data, then my business is also gone, right? I'm 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 in a loss. So that is what it is, right? So you can see that how much coverage, this is insurance, how much monetary limit they have covered you for, right? What are your indemnity clauses? What are the and other things to understand, like another very important thing which is very common in this world, and same goes everywhere, that when you're talking about the cloud service provider, there's a very big consideration we normally take, that do you want to store your data within your own country or anywhere out. For example, I would be concerned if I'm a Pakistan or in Australia or US, right? I would like to have my cloud service provider to be based within my own country. I don't want my data to be in Siberia or North Pole or South Pole, right? I need to stay within my own geographical location. That's also very important, right? Right. Plus audit, right? A very important thing which normally skip, because I have the right to ask questions, right? So if I feel that I'm not happy with my cloud service provider, I can actually go and ask questions to them, or maybe I can ask them that can we get you audited by some third party? I want to see how are your controls behaving. Yeah, something like that, right? So this is just a quick snapshot, maybe a quick one, which will help the listeners that why how they can make sure that they are getting the right service from the right cloud service provider, right?
right.
All right.
It just ask a bit more. I don't know, before you wrapping up, something around to work share your experience around for the developer perspectives also. But just ask yourself a few questions. If when choosing up the cloud hosting company, right, or the hosting
Mm.
provider that we normally choose, that you to mention the points around it, how do we select a hosting provider itself? But how do we like compensate around it when the cloud hosting providers itself protecting their secrets around here? They are not secure, they are not encrypted yet. Why it's a consciousness is spreading around the world?
It's as simple as that. The answer is very simple, because everybody's concerned, Because right now, if you look at the industry, and I'll again to just to support your answer, let me go to that one thing which luckily I have right now. So you can see around, maybe this one is one slide I can share, that if you look at this one, overall look at the type of the attacks happening, and you can see this is the most recent numbers I'm showing you with you, probably like 2 months back. And you can see the online shopping is under attack. Like people who do online business, they are the one who get most commonly attacked, right? This is one reason, and that is why people are getting aware. Because the crime is also increasing. Okay, that's one thing. If you look at another number, look at the USA one, right? Okay, USA is one part of world, and look at the number of people like attacks are happening, and look at the losses has gotten millions and billions. Especially look at the state of California and Texas, right? And secondly, if you look at this one, this is another one, average cost of data breach worldwide, and this is still 2022, and we're talking in at least 9.44 million for US. And if you even go for the least one, but I would still go for the average. That means what I can tell you, if one incident happens, let me brief it. Normally, one incident, no matter what size of the company is, on average the loss is 4.35 million. And I'll tell you another number which is not on the slide. A normal breach, a company to recover from the breach, it is just like if you're not well, right? If you get ill, so normal, how many days does it take you to recover and bring your business back to normal? It's like 16 working days. That's industry average. That means you're out of business for almost 2 to 3 weeks. When I say 16 working days, that means almost 3 weeks. So imagine the kind of losses you're talking about, right? That means, so normally it takes you 2 to 3 weeks to get back to normal. So nobody wants to like go into that situation, and that is why this awareness is increasing and people want to invest now more to secure themselves, right? But the question would be, and this is another one you can see, like data breaches. But I want to connect one thing with it, that again the next question anybody could ask me, that Zahid, how much should we invest, right? Should I invest $1 or $20,000? Okay, I understand you talk about that I'm going to lose on average 4.345 million dollars if something goes wrong, right? If my right, but then how much should I invest? Like any cloud company and come and ask me that, Zahir, okay, we are hosting a data of like 100 companies, and we are worried that if my cloud environment is breached, right, then all these companies will drive us crazy, right? They will be after our life. So for the companies who are especially cloud service, their losses would be far more even bigger than this, right? Because they also need to pay back to the customers also, right? But then again the question is how much they want to invest. So this is my same answer I'll tell you. If you go back to NIST cybersecurity framework, which is one of the best frameworks which I normally suggest, it exactly tells you what is your strength and what are your weaknesses, right? And then how much you should do to empower your weaknesses, because you need a benchmark. It is just like, for example, I'll give you an example that in your room where you're sitting, for example, uh, uh, if you're not going to replace your air conditioner with a new one, your power bill will increase by 1,000. So he said you might come and say that, okay, if I'm paying 1,000 extra every month, that means I'm paying 12,000 in 1 year, right? For example, what's the price of the new air conditioner? So I would say 100,000. So he said, forget it, Zahir. I'm not going to spend 100,000 on a new air conditioner. I'm happy with spending 12,000 more. So that's the decision we have to take, right? So how will you take that decision? So you need some kind of a benchmark. But if I come and tell you the reverse situation, that okay, your extra billing, your power will go by 8,000 per month. That means 96,000 a year. Whereas you spend 100,000 at aircon, it is guaranteed for the next 5 years. Your power bill will remain the same. That means okay, my first year will be the break even, but for the next 4 years, I will be saving a lot of money. So that's how we start to calculate about it, right? So that's very important. So that's how it all works. So that's how we need to define. So this is a very interesting debate, and normally that leads to another discussion. Maybe next time when we have a podcast. And this, I had just one slide on that which I can show the audience. But this is where we need to understand. And if you remember my first said statement, that you need to understand your assets, but you also need to understand that what why. So it's example, see, if right now you're sitting in front of your desk, You might have your laptop, you might have your other stuff, but out of the among, if I ask you to just pick one thing, what you will pick and why? And this is where the discussion comes, that what you want to protect and why. So what is your biggest risk? What is the most important thing for you? And losing that thing, why it is so, will happen? So imagine you have a lot of systems. Like you, as I said, if you ask me right now, is laptop more important or my hard drive, which I just showed you, is this important? Now, if I tell you the price, the laptop is maybe more, it's almost $1,500, and this hard drive, which I'm showing you right now, is just like $50. But again, I will take this and run away rather than taking my laptop, right? Because it's all depending what I use. So risk profiling is a big topic, a big chapter, right? And this is where you actually understand that what you need to protect, why you need to protect, and how much I should invest in protecting it. Because 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 that is the biggest question where, and right now there are, the listeners will understand what I'm trying to say, and maybe you can come back to us with your questions and we can arrange another podcast on that. That how is risk calculated? How do we determine how much I need to invest to protect myself? Because normally I've seen, so imagine just getting the best solutions in the market doesn't mean that you're safe 100%. No, right? How do you use those solutions in a very effective way? Because there's another slide also I can show you, very quick one. These are the top tools, but that doesn't mean that having these top tools in your world will make everything good for you. No, that's totally not true, because these things is only practical if you have the entire fabric of your organization designed in that way. Everything has to work in as a family, the unit, right? Otherwise it will not work with you. So that's very important, and this is where the concept of, again, the risk profiling is very important. So maybe one fine day when we are talking about some other topics, so I would like to speak more on the cyber risk management and why risk is so important and how does it help to understand, right, to determine. So it can, and plus this is generic one, so this can go to cloud, e-commerce, network, infrastructure, any business, right? Because risk is the first thing to understand, what are we protecting it, right? Right, so that's what I would say. Happy to take more questions if you have any.
Sure. So wrapping up with the very last question, let's get you for the developers mostly, and if they can help it out with this,
Yeah.
and how can developers could work with the operations teams to ensure the security patches and update are applied properly in the cloud hosting
So
environment?
basically you need to, that's a process in place. So normally what happens, the
Yeah.
biggest issue why this doesn't work, because the developers and the operation teams don't talk to each other, and that's a fact, right? So
Yeah,
normally what I've
that's a
seen in the
fact.
industry, that there has to be a proper regular meetings with up to them first, and it has to be end to end, right? So normally what happens, when I talk about the best practice in the real world, what we do, we talk about the concept of change management. Change management is a process that there will be a proper process in place where operation teams will come up with some kind of, so for example, let's say you have an operating system, right? They will first identify some new updates coming up, then they will send to the developers. But now developers also need to understand that why this update needs to be done or what needs to be changed. But reason why they would not work on it, I just answered my previous question. They don't understand the risk of not doing it. So for example, if there's something not right, and if I don't tell you that if you don't do this by this date or this time, then probably this kind of losses or this kind of issues we're having. But that kind of a, I would say, environment or discussion never happens. So for example, if I come and tell you that you, okay, this patch, operation teams will normally come and tell the developers, okay, can you put this patch in the system? Developers say, okay, I'll do it after 2 days. But what is missing, what I've seen in the industry, that operation teams can tell me that, okay, if you do it after 2 days, so what is the purpose? First tell me what is the purpose of the security patch? What are we trying to protect? How is it going to help? And if you're not doing it in the next 48 hours, this will impact my business process and so on so way. And plus, is this patch designed for my critical systems or non-critical systems, and this is where the risk profiling again goes back. So for example, as I say, right now you have 10 things. I'll give you a simple example. Let's say you have a cell phone in front of you, right? Also cell phone gets updated every now and then. We receive the update for either, for if you're using Apple, you receive updates for iOS. If you're using any other phone, you receive updates for Android. If you don't do it, what will happen? Nothing will happen. Your system is fine, but in at the back end there are some kind of breaches or some kind of vulnerabilities which are there, right? But if I come and tell you that, Jyoti, if you don't do this update is going to protect or improve your system in so and so way, and if you're not going to do, these are the risks, right? It's not necessary that those risks will happen, but it can, and if it happens, these are the problems you will have. So it's better to update it immediately rather than waiting for the next 3 days. So this is the biggest gap, right? That they have to work together. And normally the best practice what I've seen in the world, that you set up a weekly meeting, right? So first you should have an inventory of all the new updates, then you classify which update is linked with which systems or which assets, right? Somebody, and put a name of the person who will take the responsibility. See, without ownership nobody will take the responsibility. You will keep finger pointing. Put a name next to it, right? And then and understand what are the risks of not patching it up, right? For next 24 hours or 48 hours, and then prioritize, and then send it, and let these people sit together, plan, and then and every week they should meet, and somebody from the top management should review the work and ask questions if something is not happening. If that cycle is there, I can bet on this, then everything will work properly. Otherwise, if we just leave it, that it will be done when it is, when we will do it and no problem and it's fine and nothing will go wrong, and then unfortunately you can't do anything about it, right? So it has to be a proper change management process in place, where somebody has to identify the issue or the patch, somebody has to take the ownership of updating it, and somebody has to take the responsibility of going and checking it, has the update has been done or not, right?
Exactly. Let's get ending the closing the session, and then you have some final words to say.
Yeah, so the final words is simple, that especially since going back to the topic for cloud hosting, so I will again say everyone, all the listeners over here, that obviously, especially the cloud service providers, if you're a cloud service provider, I would advise you to go and assess your maturity, right? And understand your strengths and weaknesses. And then, if you can, do the risk assessment of your using the NIST cybersecurity framework, which will help you to understand where you stand in against the required benchmark. If you're here, you need to come here. If you're already here, that's good. You have to maintain it. So that's the main thing you have to do. And for the other part of the people who are looking for the cybersecurity, not cybersecurity, cloud solution provider, then at the one slide which I showed, in irrespective of, there are a lot of best practices available. Especially you can use PCI DSS requirements, right? Or NIST also gives you a lot of guidelines, and you can use those guidelines to shortlist the best possible cloud service provider for your requirement, right? So there are a lot of criteria which will vary from business to business. If you're a small business, you will have a different requirements. If you are a larger business, you will have a different requirements. So so once you will see that checklist, you will understand that which requirements are applicable to you and which requirements are not applicable to you. And based on that, it will help you to decide. And then you can make kind of a checklist for yourself. Ask, reach out to different 2 or 3 cloud service providers and pick up the best one for yourself, right? Right. And so that's the best thing you can do for yourself, right? And yeah.
That's a great point suggestions that you give. At last, can you just explain some future considerations around cloud hosting security as well, like something beyond into the future, the AI, the perspective around it,
So
anything you would
the,
like
the
to
next one which is
contribute it?
coming up, and that's a topic by itself, is the 0 day threat, right? 0 days. 0 day
Yeah.
attacks, normally what happens, that you are not prepared for it, because there is nothing there, right? It's just like COVID. When COVID happened, it was a 0 day threat. There was no vaccination available. Now in that scenario, what you do? So first of all, how do you know it's an attack? How do you know it's a problem? Like, right? And then if you, once you know how to fix it, right? So I think everybody knows what happened in 2020, 21, right? But we don't
Right.
want to go, we don't want to go into that situation, right? So how do you do that?
Mm-hmm.
So there are now tools available in the industry, in the market, which actually helps you to. So this is where another, especially the cloud service providers, has to start thinking, and they might have already thinking about it. So zero-day attack is one of the key areas nowadays everybody's talking about, and there are a lot of tools available. I can give you one name also, which Jyoti can even type over here. It's known as a black fog. I'll just put it on the chat if you want the right spelling. It's one of the tools very interestingly used for identifying uh, uh, the zero-day threat. This is one tool, right? It's not the best tool or the only tool. There are hundreds of tools, but I'm just giving you one example as black fog as one tool which is used for identifying. So this is a big consideration which you can take right now, because right now what we are doing, we are using this kind of tools, and there are a lot of other zero day tools available in the market which are coming up slowly and gradually, right? So this is something I think. So this is where again, how would you know need this tool? So you need to follow the frameworks. So whatever best practice you pick up, it will identify these weaknesses in the environment, and then you will start thinking about it. So black fog is one thing, right? The other thing which I think is very important is your smart devices. So see, the Internet of Things, like smart devices are coming up. So nowadays, cloud is not only restricted to your laptops and your tabs, your smart TVs, your watches, right? Your smart homes, right? Anything which connects with Wi-Fi, the data goes to the cloud. Start thinking about it. How do you play with that? You might have done a lot of expenses on protecting your laptop and everything, but I'll give you a very simple example if you have not thought about it. You use smart TV at home, right? And your
Right.
smart right you, on your smart TV you watch Netflix, right? Your In your Netflix you log in with your ID and password, but your smart TV is not secure. If I can hack your smart TV, I can find out your Netflix account credentials and I can watch Netflix. Simple as that. Because your Wi-Fi router is not protected at home. It's not secured, right? So this is how, if anybody wants to enter your environment, they can go through they can come through this channel also. So there are so many ways of entering your environment right now. It's not only your laptops and your tabs and devices. So the world is changing, and the security is changing day by day. So the access to the cloud and access to your environment is very easy, right? You may have the strongest of passwords for your for your Google Cloud, for your, let's say you have the strongest of the passwords for your one, but if you're using a Google Cloud through television, you are exposing your password. If you're using your Google Cloud through an unsecured phone, you're exposing your password. If you're using a Google Cloud with your smartwatch, you're exposing your password. So think about that.
That means no door is secure.
Yeah. These are the doors, right? You're opening, you're allowing people to break in.
Exactly.
All right.
All
I
right.
think that's good for today, and probably next time when we speak up, we can talk more on this stuff.
Perfect.